it's going online.
Good afternoon, colleagues and friends, and welcome to the session Empowering Youth for Climate Action. My name is Giorgia Rambelli, and I'm the coordinator for climate policy and energy governance at the European Secretariat of ICLEI Local Government for Sustainability, and it will be my great pleasure to moderate today's discussion. This event, which is taking place in the framework of All Climate for Action program, is co-organized by ICLEI and the City of Milan via the European-funded project Food Wave. The session wishes to contribute to the climate debate of the pre-COP meetings, which are taking place this week in Milan. But more than that, it needs to really act as a stepping stone towards COP26, the climate change conference, which we expect to see taking place in November in Glasgow this year. As you might have read already on the news, in the past days, new research shows how children born in 2020 will endure an average of 30 extreme heat waves in their lifetime. This is 7 times more heat waves that someone born in 1960 would have experienced. Today's children will also grow up to experience twice as many droughts and wildfires, and 3 times more river floods, crop failures than someone who is 60 nowadays will ever have in their lifetime. It is clear that the dramatic effect of climate change will increasingly affect the daily life of communities across the world. And they demand and will continue to demand effective solutions. Many of these prompt responses will have to be delivered at the local level, where communities live, they access services, and these include access to energy, to water, to food, but also the possibility to enjoy and access green spaces, affordable and safe housing, as well as mobility. As the areas in which most people live and work, and as the areas that are most often vulnerable to the effect of climate change, cities are increasingly acknowledged as the arena in which solutions to major societal and environmental challenges must be developed and implemented. With this consideration as a backdrop, the event of today aims to provide a platform for exchange between young activists and decision makers to share ideas and discuss actionable solutions to tackle climate change at the local level. We will hear directly from 6 young representatives who will share the concrete proposal for immediate action, both with you in the audience and with a number of policymakers that are present today on this panel. Through 3 rounds of discussion, we will touch upon a variety of different topics. We will discuss how to accelerate implementation of sustainable food systems, how to secure a fair ecological transition, and how to increase the youth participation in climate policy and decision-making. We want to focus on positive, concrete ideas on how to strengthen the role of youth in local climate action. And we want to explore what challenges are still remaining to ensure this youth engagement to take action and to take place. We will collect the main messages and results of today's discussion with the idea of continuing this debate. We will connect today's result with other ongoing initiatives to empower youth climate action, and in particular, we will try to make connection with important initiatives such as the Milan Youth Charter. Our aim today is not to come to a conclusion, but rather to mark a step forward in the crucial dialogue between youth and local governments, which we aim to carry forward not only at COP26, but also as we approach 2020 Youth as the European Year of Youth. So many points for discussions and some quite ambitious expectations from our side, as you can hear. But I would also like to test a little bit the temperature of our virtual room to see if these are only my expectations and my ambition point for discussion. And while introducing our panelists that have joined us today, one by one, I would also like to invite them to share briefly their personal expectation and why they joined today's session. So maybe I would like to start with Ms. Frugina Varga, the Lady Vice Mayor of Sfântu Gheorghe in Romania. Frugina, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you very much.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I am Fruzina Varga, the Deputy Mayor of St. George City, Romania, or Sfântu Gheorghe in Romanian. And first of all, I would like to tell you about my town, which is 40,000 which has 40,000 inhabitants, and we have here several nationalities. They are living together or try to live together with all their traditions and of course with all their conflicts. And I think I am here today because at the beginning of 2021, together with the Shepshigal Action Group in our city, we started working on a program to improve the living conditions of people living in marginalized neighborhoods and to sensitize the mindset, the scope of activities and the mentality of young people living there. What do I mean here? On the one hand, we are aiming to improve their attitude to education, their relationship with sustainability, and their easier integration into society. So thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Fruzina, and we look forward to hear a little bit more about how you have implemented these actions and also to see if they meet the expectation of our youth representatives here on the line to discuss with us today. Now, we take a little bit of a virtual tour around the world, and we go to Brazil, where we have Marconi Ribeiro, the Executive Secretary of Youth of the city of Recife. Marconi, can you hear us?
Hi, Giorgia. Yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As you said, my name is Marconi Ribeiro. I'm currently taking the position of Executive Secretary of Youth in Recife, in Brazil. And I'm very excited to be here because Recife has lots of challenges when it comes to climate change. Unfortunately, we are in the list of the of the 20 most vulnerable cities around the world to suffer with the climate change effect. I think it's really important for me to be here to learn from many other people from different places. What are the actions that everyone is taking, and also share a little bit of what we're doing in Recife, especially for the youth. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm very excited.
Thank you, Marconi, and we look forward to hearing also how things are done in other parts of the world and to really also learn from your experiences. But now we cross back the Atlantic, and it's my pleasure to introduce Jean Billon. He's a senior business advisor in London, United Kingdom. Jean, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I am part of London, which is a partnership between the Mayor of London and the 33 local authorities. And our aim is to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. And food is really a key focus for us, both in terms of the impacts it can have on climate change and also environmental impacts, but also all the other co-benefits. So really excited to be here. And yeah, it's important because there's this food wave project that we're one of the implementation partners of in London. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean. And also from, of course, we look forward to hearing your experience as well. I would now ask maybe to give a bit of a welcome to one of our colleagues staying in Europe, going a little bit north. So Lotte Suveri, a project specialist from the Climate and Environmental Policy Unit of the city of Turku. Lotte, are you with us, and why are you in this session today?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm happy to be here with you. Actually, what I'm looking for today's discussion is good ideas on how to involve young people in policy making. Because here in Turku, now currently our climate team that we operate in the city administration. So our task is to update the city's climate plan this autumn and spring. And in this process, we need to consider how to involve young people in it. And it's a quite complicated process, like even for us. So it would be useful to have some tips on how we could use young people's voice on it. And actually, young people and climate action is now very topical at the moment in Finland. I just arrived today from Helsinki, where they started this big climate protest by the Extinction Rebellion movement, and they're gonna be 10 days protesting in front of the Parliament House. So I think we're gonna have here in Finland a lot of news in youth and climate action in the upcoming days. So it's a topical issue.
Thank you very much for being with us, Lotte, for you as well. And absolutely, you're making a good point. And I also like very much this very positive attitude. We are here not only to express what type of solutions we have already implemented, but most of all to also hear how we can implement new solutions that are more, you say, effective when it comes to engaging in a more institutionalized manner, even our youth into their own local climate processes. So a bit of homework, not only the possibility to present solutions, but also a little bit of homework for all of us. I would like now to introduce Andrea Magarini, so the Milan Food Policy Coordinator of the City of Milan, our co-organizer. Andrea, can you hear us?
Yes. So thank you, Giorgia. Let me say hello. We met a few years ago in Kuala Lumpur on the other side of the world. But yeah, I'm very happy to be here with you. The City of Milan are working since 2014 on developing our food policy. Now we are in the phase of implementing this food policy. And one of the big thoughts is how we can engage youth in the policy-making process. As also Lotte mentioned, I think that one of the big challenges is to try to engage directly within our institution youth generation as officers, so as food policy officers. I'm very glad to be here and listen your experience and try to understand also in our case with a background of our food policy. So everything concerning preventing food waste, promoting healthy diet, organize short supply chain, and also together organizing advocacy action towards our national government, our European institution to organize a better food system together. Thanks again, and I'm hopefully to receive very good input from your side.
Thank you, Andrea, also for your positivity and for your willingness to discuss these important issues around our food systems. And this will be sneak preview for all of you, our first round of discussion. So stay tuned. We are ready to get kicked off with our conversation exactly on this specific point. But before we do that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you now João Diniz. She's the coordinator of Urban Transition Acceleration Division in the city of Cascais, Portugal. João, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello, João.
Very nice to hear from you, and particularly you, Giorgia. Thank you very much for this very kind invitation, and we look forward to sharing our knowledge on sustainability and climate-driven policies.
Thank you very much. But a multi-generational, cross-sectoral discussion wouldn't be completed if we also wouldn't have a little bit of multi-level conversation. So it's my great pleasure to introduce now a couple of representatives of European institutions, in particular, Maria Nicolopoulou. She's a member of the European Economic and Social Committee, and she's the Vice President of the Section for Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment. Maria, are you with us?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Giorgia. Very, very thankful for your invitation. I'm very happy to be here. Apart from a member of the European Economic and Social Committee, I represent the Spanish Trade Union. So as my background is basically focused on how to open opportunities, how to push forward changes, how to knock on closed doors, and how to engage people in action, I think we perfectly fit here. And apart from that, I would also like to remind everyone in every occasion how the committee is committed to work with the young people who have several open projects with youth organizations. So we'll go back to this just to showcase that there are opportunities out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. And I think it's great to hear that there is a commitment also from the European institution side to continue this dialogue. And we look forward to hearing a little bit more of your different initiatives in this regard. But I would like to give the floor now to your colleague, another representative from the European Economic and Social Committee, Andreas Turner, is, as I mentioned, a member of the same institution, but also the president of the thematic study group on sustainable food system. Andreas, can you hear us?
Yes, very well. Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm happy to be with you here this afternoon. I'm connected with you from Vienna, Austria. My background is actually I'm coming from a farm, and now I'm also representing farmers' interests within the European and Economic Social Committee. And yes, in our committee, we do have a thematic group which is dealing with questions around sustainable food systems. And I have the honor to chair this group and these discussions. We are currently working on an opinion on how to align food business operations and food business strategies with the SDGs. So the topic is very much placed to your discussion theme this afternoon. And I'm here and I would actually echo this what my colleague Maria said before. I'm here to hear the young representatives and their ideas. Our experience in our committee was actually that they do have very good ideas. They are active, and whenever we can, we actually provide them also a platform during our hearings to listen to their voices, because they are discussing about their future. Actually, very often it's about the future, especially of the young generation. So it's absolutely important to listen to them and their ideas. Looking forward to a good discussion and event this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Indeed, I can already give you a bit of a spoiler alert. There are quite a few very good ideas coming up very soon. So you should pull out your notepads or your keyboards, get ready, because I think we will have quite a few new things to discuss and new consideration and ideas to bring forward. But before we do that, last but not the least, it's now my pleasure to introduce you to Lena Pruchet. She's a Climate Pact ambassador, a recent EU launched initiative, the European Climate Pact. And I understand, Lena, you will have a little bit of a dual position today, since you are also part of these young youth activists, I believe.
Yeah, exactly, the double hat. Thank you very much for your invitation. I'm very, very happy to be able to join you today, because I feel the topic of youth empowerment is really critical. As it was said previously, our generation is going to be the one that suffered the most from climate change consequences. And therefore, we really need to be involved in climate action, but also environmental decision making. So I really think this event contributes to this trend and going beyond youth inclusion, but really having genuine and consistent engagement. And as you were mentioning, I am myself a youth activist. I'm part of Generation Climate Europe. So it's a youth-led network and a coalition pushing for more ambitious climate and environmental policies at the EU level. But I am also a deep believer in cooperation with institutions, and I think the EU Climate Pact I'm going to be talking about today is really the opportunity to do that, to make the link between institutions and civil society through the ambassador program I am part of. So hopefully through this initiative we can contribute to this movement today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. And I think this is a great also starting point, also bringing already from the outset opportunities additionally to the one of today and the one that I mentioned coming up with the climate negotiation in the next period, also for the youth and for youth representatives to continue engaging within EU climate policy. So please, also everyone that is on the line should take benefit as much as possible of this opportunity. And as I already mentioned, we really want to hear from our youth representative first and foremost. But before I do that, I would like to remind everyone in our audience that, of course, this event is live streamed via Facebook, as that's where you are listening to us from. But it's also recorded, so it will be made available afterwards. And it's possible for you to also share your comments live, and we will definitely encourage you to do that to facilitate the conversation with you. It's my pleasure to introduce you to my colleague Corrado Paterno. He's from the city of Milan, Food Wave in particular, who will monitor your comments and on the live stream, and we will do our best, of course, to work them and reflect them and pick them up into our conversation throughout the duration of our event. Corrado, is our group already active here? Do you see any comments coming through?
Hello, everybody. No comments so far, but I will keep you updated. And thanks a lot for the presentation, Giorgia.
Thank you very much. And yes, we look forward to hearing from all of you, of course. So happy to hear your thoughts very soon. Now, without any further hesitation, I think it's time to give the floor to this youth representative. And it's my pleasure to give the floor to Nathan Lee as our first representative of the day, to hear a little bit more about his ideas, his asks on how to improve, in particular, the sustainability of our food system. So Nathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And imagine one day you walk into a supermarket and there's only one product to choose from. How would you feel? Supermarkets provide a diverse range of food products. We all love diversity. The more, the better. So what if I tell you that tomorrow you will have one more choice, food from farms of high crop diversity? High crop diversity can restore carbon in our agricultural soil and support biodiversity. It also creates a beautiful landscape that is ecologically and financially resilient to climate change. In the future, when we travel to rural areas, we will see farms with colorful strips as farmers plant different crops next to one another. We envision a future where farms can ensure that business are economically viable while farming with more crop diversity. So it is high time for us youth to act. The first action is to include diverse ingredients in our diets. Today, only 4 crops provide around 60% of our calories. It is time for us to diversify our consumption. For example, we need to eat more legumes like lentils, chickpeas, and lupins. And the second action is to buy that food from producers who embrace nature-positive production principles, such as low chemical input, minimal salt disturbance, and job creation for rural youth. And when the choice are available, I believe we youth can make informed decisions on sustainable food consumption. So how can policymakers make this happen? Our food system needs to transform, and we need food distribution channels that highlight the integration between food production and biodiversity. And public procurement can serve as a means to mainstream new behaviors. And we also need a reconnection between producers and consumers. Policymakers can also encourage actors like retailers to sell food blocks from farms with high crop diversity at an affordable price so that all youth can choose to consume responsibly. We need a fair market competition that acknowledges farmers' role in maintaining natural capital. And both policymakers and retailers should recognize the significant contribution of small-scale farmers to food production, crop diversity, and biodiversity. And we as youth believe that a sustainable food system is inclusive and equitable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathan, for your contribution. You already brought quite a few topics, I think, to our virtual table, going from biodiversity to the importance of really having also a more sustainable approach when it comes to the market, and talking about the way that we are purchasing and diversifying our diet as well. So thank you already for bringing to the table all these different steps. One step that was mentioned, but maybe that will be better qualified and more part and protagonist of our next speech from David Bayer is the part around food waste. So David, are you with us?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for having me.
The floor is yours, David.
It is with great sorrow that I notice alone here in Germany, one of Europe's most wealthiest country, 12 million tons of food are being wasted every year. Food that in most cases would be perfectly fine to eat, mainly because we as a society have lost the attachment to our food. Barely anyone grows their own food anymore, and perhaps urban gardening could be the solve to this. Instead of using our local products, we import so-called superfoods from all over the world, avocados and other exotics, forgetting about its environmental impact. Growing a kilogram of avocados, for example, requires about 1,000 liters of water. A kilogram of beef, even more, with nearly 16,000 liters of water. Agriculture in total is responsible for almost a decile of all global green gas emissions. Therefore, we must cut the emissions and reduce our carbon footprint. This can be done by drawing on our locally and seasonally grown crops, throwing away less food, and limiting our meat intake. In order to evoke a change in consciousness, we first need a better educational system that teaches us about these things, providing first-hand experience for students to meet the producers of our food, for example. I believe we will start dishing our food again so we don't waste it while millions upon millions are starving elsewhere. From our political leaders, I demand that they honor the Paris Climate Agreement, and furthermore, they need to become more transparent about their decision-making, allowing us mature citizens to influence policy by using our suffrages, which implies strong, meaningful democracy. Supporting alternative forms of agriculture, such as the organic one, funding scientific programs, looking for innovations like clean meat, putting an end to animal cruelty, raising the European standards, weakening the food industry's influence, replacing sell-by-date with best before, criminalizing big-scale food waste by legalizing food rescue, for example, dumpster diving, could be more initial steps. Additionally, we need to stop importing soy from countries like Brazil that destroy the rainforest in exchange for monoculture. Our leaders must pave the way for a future sustainable and eco-friendly food system. I ask us, the youth, to critically question our individual choices and consumer behavior and to unite, because the issues raised can only be solved with the help of the government. Us young people are full of enthusiasm, ideas, and the willingness to become active. Due to the power of the internet, we are stronger than ever and can connect more easily. And therefore, let's join each other here today and spark a dialogue with experts, since it is my belief that we only will protect what we know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, also for ending your pitch and your ask with such a positive note and the encouragement of working all together to try to find solutions. And speaking of solutions, I will use now my power as moderator to call upon some of you to discuss a little bit what are the solutions that you have been putting in place on the ground in your cities. So we already heard both from London and Jean in particular, but also from Andrea from Milan, that you are part of this project Food Wave. We are exactly trying to find a solution to this important problem of establishing better and more sustainable food system. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you are doing and how are you trying to respond to the different questions that have been brought to the table? You heard biodiversity, urban gardening, the power of procurement, quite a bit of food for thought. So maybe, Jean, can I ask you to get us started with some reflections?
Sure, thanks. That was really great pitches from both of you. So well done first for bringing this really interesting thoughts to the debate. I'd like to come back to what Nathan was saying around the consumption, which I think was a really, really good point, is that we can shape our food system with our wallets. And in cities particularly, it's estimated that 80% of the foods will be consumed in cities by 2050. So as citizens, we have a power to change how the food is produced and consumed. However, I think it's not just citizens. The power is not just with citizens, and it has to be with policymakers, because there are some systemic issues, such as the price of food, for example. Why is bad food so cheap? Because it's not taking into account the negative externalities of the bad food, the environmental impact, the health impact of the food that was consumed. So I guess it's really important to act with our consuming powers, but also we need to lobby governments and institutions to work and change the pricing system. So there's some interesting reflection underway, but like that's one key thing to push in the next years. I think the systemic issues around the price of food and around the kind of things we are doing. So food waste is really critical for us in London. The mayor has committed to the 50% waste reduction targets by 2030 of the SDG 12.3. And we are working a lot with businesses, with citizens, with awareness raising campaigns, also with the youth, with the food waste program on social media, with activists, young activists as well in the city. Procurement is really an important one, and we want to do more work on this with schools, for example. So a lot of the food is consumed in schools, so there's a great leverage to reduce the environmental impact of foods. And I mean, Andrea will probably say something about this because I've done some amazing work on this, and we'd like to see how we can do something around that as well, around the environmental impact of the food served in publicly procured foods. So that's one key one. And then infrastructure, we need to invest in better infrastructure to collect more foods. So at the moment, 75% of the local authorities in London are collecting food waste, but only 25 to 30% of the food waste is collected. So we need to have first more, so like 100% of the local authorities, but also increase the rate of collection. So there are a lot of really interesting challenges, and we are trying to act on different fronts to solve this issue.
Thank you very much, Shun. So you already mentioned Andrea. I mean, also from my side, Andrea, the fact that Milan has a food policy coordinator means that clearly it's an important agenda. So how would you respond to the asks of our two youth representatives on the line? What is Milan doing? What would you like to continue be doing in the future?
Thank you. Yeah, for sure. We want to continue to do in the future, not near future, but in a long time, because the commitment of our municipality, of our mayor, of our vice mayor, and also of all of our directors, officers, so the municipality itself are increasing our actions towards a sustainable food system. We work, as I mentioned before, since 2014 with a scientific approach, so producing a lot of evidence based for each of our food policy action, working on different field of action, short supply chain, food waste, public procurement, school canteens, and so on. And after 5 years of work, I think that on the top of our priority, there is public procurement. I have a lot of evidence based on this, and is the perfect entry point to truly change our food system, because we can exploit the power of the municipalities to engage also the private sector in this transformation, in this transition. In our metropolitan area, per year, we manage 77 million of public meals. Public meals from school canteens, prisons, hospitals, elderly homes, and so on. And on this, within the municipality, so in the center of this metropolitan area, we establish a fully under our control system of school canteens, based on about 600 of school canteens, 26 cooking centers, and each day we prepare 85,000 meals. So working with the school canteens, we try to transform our menu, so our diets for the children, by increasing, first of all, by cutting the red meat, and also transform all the animal-based protein to plant-based protein. And year by year, we try to introduce a new plate and to avoid one, to try to introduce our new ingredients and to avoid one that is not sustainable. After 5 years, we monitor, because as mentioned, we work with scientific evidences, we monitor with the World Research Institute all of the environmental impact of this decision. And after 5 years, we were able to recognize the 20% of decreasing of GHG emission of our school canteens public procurement system. That is in CO2 equivalent are about 40,000 of kilo per year. So a huge quantity. We also do the same for food waste prevention. We are organizing a lot of direct distribution of food losses, action to prevent food waste in school canteens, in the wholesale market, in our open street market, in our municipal events, and so on. But based on that, we noticed that the reduction of GHG are about 1,000 per year. So 50,000, 1,000. And this is very, very useful because working with school canteens, from one side, we are able to change our environmental impact, and from the same side, so not the other side, but in the same side, we are also able to promote healthy diets. There are a lot of evidences, and we are working a lot with the Eat Lancet Commission recommendation with the WHO, so the World Health Organization, to work to promote plant-based food, and also to try to connect this public procurement to our peri-urban agriculture. Milan is in the center of a huge agricultural park with more than 120 and 200 of farmers, and with a pioneering group of them, we are trying to introduce legumes and new plant-based food that at the end we can buy with a public procurement. So again, public procurement is a powerful platform to try to transform our food system, working within an infrastructure of a food system that are fully controlled by our municipality.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for the insights on what Milan is doing, and congratulations, of course, for the work that is being undertaken. Although it's clearly a long way for cities and for our food system across Europe. And about that, I would actually ask Andreas to tell us a little bit more about what this technical working group has found out. I mean, the fact even that you have a specific technical working group on food system really hints to the fact that this is a very large problem that also requires quite a, let's say, hands-on solution from different sides. So what is your response to the different subjects and topics brought to the table by both David and Nathan?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, let me say what I really liked on the approaches of both of them, Nathan and David. First of all, that they also said what we can do, what everybody of us can do, and not only pointing on the others, what they should do. Of course, it needs always complementary measures, and their policy is in charge. The government is in charge. But it has been discussed about actually the consumer power. And I think this is really a crucial part. Which product do I take from the shelf? And every shopping of food is at the same time a production order for the next pieces of food, because farmers try, of course, to produce according to the market. So what consumers seek. So the power of the consumers is very important. We have to consider this at every action. And then I think Nathan also referred to the issue of organic. Do we seek for organic products? Ideally, they would be a regional product, and even more a seasonal product. So to take into account all of these questions. Actually, all issues which have been touched upon so far are also part of our discussions within the work or of the work in our committee or in our thematic group. So I can only underline the demand is really, really crucial, and also the reflection that consumers less and less connected to food, and the question of the value of food is getting lost more and more, also to a stronger distance from consumers, citizens to farmers. This has changed over the past years. So this is also I think a crucial entry point. The suggestions have been made that it is also about education. So information and education can play a role here. On the other side, on the supply side, I think the European agriculture has already done a large part of its homework if we compare the agricultural on a global level. So European agriculture actually has reduced the greenhouse gas emissions over the past years. All the other regions, the agricultural sectors in the other regions of the world, they didn't. So, and in the years to come, you know, the common agricultural policy is actually currently undergoing another reform. There will be the possibility for member states to develop CAP strategic plans to actually develop quite tailor-made solutions and let's say support schemes for each member states, contributing actually to the 3 pillars of sustainability: the economic, the ecological, and the social pillar of this concept. So I think we are on a good track in Europe, but of course we can always do better. The role of public procurement, I can only agree. There is absolutely a role to play. If the society and if we wish and if you would like to go this direction, then I think it's also an obligement of, let's say, the cities, the public authorities, also to lead by example. And public procurement has to play a role here. So out of house consumption is increasing. More and more people are consuming their meals out of the house. So school canteens, public canteens, hospitals, military services, and so forth. So there is a role to play from the public sector also to increase the demand for those sustainable products where we actually want to go to, so that farmers actually also have a market and can increase the market. I know we are already short in time, but maybe a final remark on the issue of food waste, which is of course also a very important area. By the way, today there is this International Day of Food Losses and Food Waste, just to help awareness raising about this very important issue. About 1/3 of the food we produce is lost or wasted till the way to the consumer. And then the biggest part actually of food loss, and in that case mostly waste, happens actually at the household level. So at the consumer household level, more than 50%. And there, of course, the products have already the heaviest backpack of CO2, because it's the end. They have gone the entire production circles, the transport, the packaging, all this consumes carbon emissions, and so this is really a crucial point actually to get to act here. You were referring to date marking. Education, of course, can play a role here. Best before does not mean lethal after, and so forth and so forth. So this is also about awareness raising and education, the connection between consumer, citizens, and food. So plenty of things to do here. And I think I leave it with that, because otherwise we will overdo it.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for your insight, and also for taking us through different subjects that we've raised today. I know that we are already almost over time, but I still would like to give the opportunity to both Nathan and David to react very quickly to what they heard. So you heard a lot of things being implemented. Were you aware of those? And are you happy with what is being proposed? And is there anything else that you would like to see happening? So maybe Nathan, we can start with you, if you have any comments.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for all the panelists reacting to my pitch. And I think that there are a lot of things that I studied at my university, and I also know about the good things that the European Union and also the member states have been doing so far. And I think that from a consumer perspective, I think the most important thing is really the accessibility. So personally speaking, I usually finish my class at 5 p.m., but also at the same time, for example, some shops that provide organic products, or maybe farms that provide organic products, also close at 5 p.m. for some reason. And that's why I feel that the accessibility to these kind of, let's say, local agroecological food products can be improved by public procurement, and also supplying to supermarkets if retailers it's possible to do that.
Thank you very much, Nathan. David, anything from your side?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for your answers, and it's refreshing to see that there are measures being taken in order to address this problem, because I think sometimes you might lose track and you might forget that there are actually people really trying hard to address these problems when you're such an individual. I was wondering what you maybe thought of France's way, for example, in order to at least fight some of the food waste, where they even use legislation to, for example, forbid businesses and supermarkets to throw away food that would otherwise be perfectly fine to eat.
Thank you, David. We are a little bit over time, but maybe one of our speakers would like to respond and to react. First come, first served.
I can jump in really quickly on the French
Please, go
one.
ahead.
Just on the French, I think, I mean, this is a really interesting approach, and that has had some really great impact. There is a risk that if you implement it without supporting the third sector, then it will create some imbalance and some difficulties for the whole sector. So like is not a silver bullet either. It's a really interesting kind of option, but it needs to be really well thought out, I think.
Thank you very much for joining us, and please stay on the line. Hopefully we will have more opportunity also for you to continue discussing with us the other different topics that we have in our plan for you. And I would like now to give the floor to Hesile Makitsi to talk about a little bit what her ideas and her pitch and her ask will be to implement a fair ecological transition. Hesile, can you hear us?
Yes, of course.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi. So according to the European Parliament, e-waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the EU, and less than 40% is being recycled. This figure is so much higher in lower and medium income countries, and the majority of the waste is made up of large household appliances. Globally, only 17% of e-waste was produced in 2019 reached formal management or recycling facilities. The rest was illegally dumped, where it is recycled by informal workers. 18 million children and adolescents, some as young as 5 years age, are actively engaged in the informal industrial sector, of which e-waste recycling is a subsector because of their small and dexterous hands. So e-waste is electronic equipment, which is discarded as waste by the consumer, as well as rejects from manufacturing, refurbishment, and repair processes. E-waste does contain valuable resources that can be extracted through proper handling and treatment processes. It also contains small amounts of hazardous substances, which harm the environment as well as our health if improperly disposed of. While above the ground, modern electronics are safe to use and to be around, e-waste particularly dangerous due to the toxic chemicals that are naturally leached from the metals inside when they are buried. We youth must demand more of our governments and communities to prevent e-waste from ending up in landfills, where it poses a serious risk of environmental risk to our soil, water, air, and wildlife. And this pollution doesn't stop at the landfill, it also ends up in our groundwater and fresh water as well. The youth and households want to recycle electronic waste, and each of us can play our part in reducing the amount of e-waste that's generated and ensuring that e-waste is not thrown away as general waste, but sent for proper treatment and recycling instead. So I think that policymakers could make sure that the network of refuge collectors that we already have and the collection can be made from homes or collection sites quarterly at least. And I think that policymakers could also make sure that they collect or ensure that the electronic waste can be reused, recycled, and produce products that are able to be influenced in our circular economy by developing products that are safe to use, safe to dispose of, and safe to collect as well by our manufacturers. So I think this would be a good policy in ensuring that we put the responsibility back on producers to make sure that they have responsibility for their products that they produce.
Thank you very much. So from the food value chain, we are now moving to other type of products and their own value chain. And I'm really curious to hear more from our speakers about how, for example, they engage with corporate responsibility and how they are collaborating with the business sector, for example, to answer some of these questions. But before we do that, I would like to give the floor to Aspan Diyarmunir for his contribution to how to implement a fair ecological transition. Aspan, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity. Our societies are in transition towards a greener and more sustainable lifestyle, but not all localities transition at the same pace. Disparity in sustainable transition should be a key driver for politicians and policymakers to enact legislation which reduces this difference. This can only be done when we quantify such disparities, so that policymakers can well direct their policies benefiting the least advantaged. We propose the development of a set of indicators that can be utilized to quantify this disparity and can go beyond economic factors to include circularity and sustainability between localities. In the economic parlance, similar indicators can be found, an example of which is the Gini coefficient. But when it comes to quantifying the disparity and sustainable transition of localities, none can be seen. We request the policymakers to commission projects of research with local universities to aid the development of such indicators. With such indicators in hand and the right policies implemented, localities will be able to achieve their science-based targets at a much faster pace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aspan, for your contribution. And I would like now to ask a few of our panelists to also react from their perspective. So we heard quite a few keywords again being promoted and presented in the ask of our youth representatives. We talked about circularity, the importance also of looking into the social aspect and inclusivity of what the fair ecological transition looks like. We heard about the importance of bringing board researchers and institutions, but also, of course, to make our business sector as a partner in this development, and also to take responsibility together with the collective responsibility of everyone also on how to bring forward this transition. So I would like to ask, maybe starting perhaps from Frugina, what is your experience? I know you already mentioned how you're already engaging the youth in this process. So how are you dealing with these different topics in your context, and what are the solutions that you've been putting on the ground?
Yes, thank you, Giorgia. As I mentioned so far, St. George is a multi-ethnic city, so we have these conflicts you mentioned, but we have other ones too regarding to ethnicity. But I guess that our municipality and our local government is trying to develop as much as possible the kind of community communications that can open people's mind to be interested not only in local, but also in national and international issues and problems. The Uplift program I have so far mentioned is a youth empowerment program that seeks first and foremost to foster communication between generations, but also to bridge the gap between material sets. In all these ways, we are trying to reach young people with the main messages of our time in a way that they see as an opportunity rather than a constraint, and that they want to engage with these problems. As I myself got involved in the community building and the political circles at a fairly young age, because I'm just 25-year-old, and I think that it's very important that not only the issues that are of concern reach my contemporaries, but also those that are a factor in the local, national, and international debate too. And within this Uplift project, two groups are working. for the time being in parallel, but constantly moving closer together. In one group, 2 trainers are giving workshops on different topics to young people who are socially discriminated. And in the other group, leaders of sectors and institutions who can provide answers to the question raised by the group of young people are working together. At the end, these 2 groups will have some common workshops and common panels and suggestions to the local government and to the municipality. Recently, I have tried to be present in both groups, even though I am not a young person from a disadvantaged group, but I am young enough to be a part of this group. And I have noticed that contrary to the perceptions, all the issues that the average person faces every day are also relevant in their environment too. In Romania, unfortunately, environmental awareness is only now starting to show new directions and developing trends, obviously in the bigger cities first. But despite this, the new urban development strategy in my city also largely favors a sustainable environment and a health-conscious lifestyle. And I trust and hope that in the future, through the Uplift program, we will be able to bring both awareness raising and sensitizing trends to marginalized areas too, which will appeal to the whole community. And we have brought smart bins into the city. We have been running selective waste collection campaigns in the schools and universities for years. We are expanding the network of cycle paths, the infrastructures of leisure parks, and we hope to be able to replace all public transport vehicles with electric ones within some years. And we will try to make the most of the new renewal cycle, given the size of the city and the openness of the community, and to adopt the vision of an environmentally friendly and youth-friendly and sustainable city. And finally, just I would like to mention that probably Lotti had the question how to involve young people in policy making. And my answer is that I don't know, but is a fact that I know that young people are interested, indifferent to their social, material, or educational situation. But we should become those persons who find the language and the communication form which is affordable to them. And probably young policymakers should be the ones who start this communication and not the young people, because here in Romania, the most problems are coming from this, that everybody is waiting the first step, and nobody knows who should be the one who makes this first step. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Regina. And hopefully this is indeed also for us a first step taken to continue this conversation in the future. So let's of course go through the conversation today, but I'm already looking forward to the next opportunity for us to continue discussing. And speaking of discussion, I will ask maybe Marconi to share a little bit of his experience from the other side of the world. Do you also have this issue around circular economy to be implemented? What are you doing to support these processes? And most of all, do you also have challenges faced around the measure, for example, with social implications around inequalities or engaging vulnerable groups? What are you doing in Recife to tackle all these challenges?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that went on here, and many things are really important to highlight. I think it's good to share a little bit of the situation in Brazil before speaking about Recife specifically. I think some people here mentioned about the situation in Brazil. Brazil has been for so many years a reference in the discussions of climate change because of all the natural resources and all the capacity that we have to have a sustainable country and all the resources we have. But unfortunately, Brazil is facing a very challenging situation. It has been a really dark time for us Brazilians because we have a president who doesn't really understand and happens to not want to understand the importance of taking discussions and making public policies to solve the issues in climate change. So this absence of public policies is contributing to destroy our natural resources. But in the other hand, I think the local governments are taking responsibility and working really hard to do what Bolsonaro seems not to be worrying about. And João Campos, our mayor in Recife, he happens to be the youngest mayor in a capital in Brazil. He's only 27, and he's taking climate change as something very important, as a priority in our government here in Recife. And Geraldo Júlio, which is our past mayor, he's the current president of ICLEI in Latin America, and Recife has been working really hard to change the situation that we are facing in Brazil, and especially in Recife, because as I said, Recife is listed as one of the most vulnerable cities to suffer with climate change effects around the world. So Recife has become a national reference in policymaking to confront climate change, and we have a local action plan to work towards to confront climate change. So there's many things that we are doing, and when it comes to working with vulnerable groups, especially youth, here in Recife, we launched our first leadership training, climate change for youth. And in the base of this training, because we believe that it all starts with education, we made sure that vulnerable groups are included. So Recife, most of the people in Recife are, more than 60% of the population in Recife are composed by Black people and females. So in this training, we make sure that females and Black people are involved in the training. And we also want we work with the diversity of territories, because when we discuss climate change, we have to understand that based on the place that we're living, based on the area that you're living, the discussion is going to be different. So how to empower young people and how to bring them in, engage them in climate change discussions. So we decided to start this training with youth here to create this network of young leaderships where they will be able to take the discussions to their communities and also make a social impact in their territory. So this is one thing that we believe that is very important to highlight, because everyone says that youth is the future, but we have to, when it comes to public policy, we have to think about the moment. We have to think about now. And I think our way we can involve youth and empower them is by giving them the opportunity to learn about what it is, because climate change is a very challenging discussion, and we have to make sure that everyone is in the same pace when it comes to understanding it.
Thank you very much, Marconi, for your experience and for sharing what Recife is doing to engage different part of its society. I would like to ask maybe also João to share a little bit the experience of Cascais concerning this. João, are you engaging research, business? Are you trying to find indicators to map a little bit how this transition is being rolled out? And what are your policy in terms of trying to make sure that everyone takes a little bit of their own responsibility in trying to meet this collective important goal that we have of meeting our Paris Agreement objectives?
Yeah, well, so that's a very strong and very challenging question to ask, because we're talking about the systemic approach or the systemic change that we as a society need to change. So we usually talk about governments need to be more proactive, citizens need to change their consumption habits, but we as a society have to change our mindset on the way that we consume products and the way that we occupy our own territory, or in this case, our world. So it would be very interesting to see how we can keep furthering our knowledge about the impacts that we as individuals, I would say I'd use the word individual, or family households have in our consumption habits. And when I say consumption, I'm talking about everything that was mentioned here. So we've talked about food, obviously, but we need to address as well energy. We need to address mobility, and we need to address our leisure times and the way that we see our free time and we use our free time as well, or even the way we work, and especially in the pandemic. So if we were having this conversation, I would say 10 years ago, we'd be joining a Central European country and everybody would have to fly there or travel there. Now this is the norm, which is, in my opinion, really good, really interesting, because I'm learning a lot from hearing from you right from my home, and zero CO2 emissions over that. However, when it comes to policies, it's a bit more difficult. And why is that? Because we, as municipalities or local governments, we have a more direct contact or channel to communicate with citizens. However, when it comes for mobility policies, we have a small range of responsibilities and action. It's the same thing when it comes to food, because that is national or even internationally driven, because it's market driven. So I can get my fruit, for example, from Brazil, for example. I can get meat from South America as well, or any part of Europe or in the world. And I can do a type of consumer waste that it's fairly common in the Western world that I know that will be processed. It will magically disappear on my mind, right? As soon as I put it in a bin, it magically disappears, but no. So when it comes to policies, what we've been trying to do is we're trying to create policies for different sectors. For example, waste management. Waste management is, I would say, 20% of our ecological footprint. Maybe even more if we consider the full cycle of production of the products that we consumed before and originated that waste, because I'm not considering the waste in production or the waste in transportation, right? So maybe even more than 20%, fairly. So what we're trying to do is, example, food waste. Well, food waste is very specific and it's waste. It's not completely garbage in a different tone of voice. Waste means that there's something left, but it doesn't mean that it can't be used. So organic waste should definitely be considered for energy production or any type of reuse in a circular economy principle for new agriculture production, much more sustainable. So we're trying to do that, to engage the citizen, which we have the direct contact with. Please separate your organic waste so we can introduce it to the production, because that's our role. That's how far we can reach. And the same for plastic use. Why are you using plastic or unusable plastic bottles? Just change it for something else. So we try to provide a local policy where you can easily get a refillable bottle, for example. So these type of small things actually add up a lot, because we challenge our restaurants. Well, you know what? Don't use disposable plastic. Just use something that it can be reused. Put a logo there, like I'm eco. I'm trying to do something. I can only go this far, but at least I'm trying. So if we do this and we sum all our actions on waste management, we can do the same. It's the same with energy. We are the first municipality in Portugal to provide free bus transportation everywhere within the municipality. So you just hop on a bus and you travel 10 kilometers one way or another way. This way, you don't need to use your car, because the problem is the car is extremely comfortable, isn't it? Especially during the pandemic, people stopped using public transportation. But we need to create incentives for people to change their habits. It's very difficult for change. Otherwise, we'd be all very healthy. We'd only eat proper things, and we'd completely change our mindsets on a lot of consumption. But we can't, because we don't have that opportunity or that incentives. And that's something that we as municipalities can do. The same with energy. We're trying to build the first or one of the first energy communities in Portugal. You've got some roof space? Great. You want to install some PV solar panels to sell to your neighbor, maybe make some money out of it? Well, we'll help you out, because that's what we can do. We cannot change the energy policy, but we can change that. So if you sum all these sectors, to try to engage with the citizen that we contact every day, we knock on their door. The government doesn't do that, but we do, and so do NGOs. So we support the citizen and some NGOs as well, just to change the broad aspect of these sectors. And that is I would say that is the way towards transition, is each one does its own role and its own part and informs why. We'll easily do this.
Thank you very much, Joao, for your examples and also for including the conversation around mobility and energy. We haven't spoken too much about it today, but of course, these are very important sectors in terms of emissions and also in terms of having a clear impact in our future, as well as on the changes that we need for our own lifestyles. Maybe I would like to ask then both Aspen and ICLEI if they have anything that they would like to respond to the contributions that were given. And also, I would like to remark the fact that, yes, we are all connected here via all this technology that makes it available, but also becomes waste eventually. So going back, circularly to the point that ICLEI has made at the beginning. So what are your reactions to your pitches?
I mean, I think that's brilliant, to hear what Portugal is doing about their waste problems and all of the initiatives that they have started. I think there's a lot of European countries that are making waves in electronic waste recycling. I think an example would be a country like Malta, who is recycling 80% of their electronic waste. So it is possible. So I would like to know from you, what can the youth say to make things happen? What can they do to mobilize recycling initiatives in their communities and in their municipalities?
I will allow one first come, first serve for this one as well, because we are a little bit over time. Who wants to take it?
I would like.
Go ahead.
Sorry. It will be short. The problem is, I don't know if anybody is on the same opinion, but I am a deputy mayor since November 2020. So it's almost a year, and I lost all my creativity. So I would say that the first step is to tell us ideas, to tell us the way we should act, because this is the main problem of mine, that I can't even imagine what should I do and how should I do. We have the money, we have the wanting to do something, but I don't have the idea. So from my point of view, this is the one. Share us ideas.
Thank you, Corrado. Looks like we have a work cut out for ourselves. We did a contest to collect these pitches. Maybe we should open another one for ideas to see where we can go in the next 6 months, in the next years. Aspan, would you go ahead, Corrado?
Well, that's great. You're right. I agree. Totally agree.
Aspan, maybe also from your side, would you like to react as well?
Well, we're very happy to hear people from Portugal and Brazil and Romania talk about the local initiatives they are taking. In the context of my pitch, I would be asking, how do we quantify the result of your measures of policy on ground to see whether those policies have been effective or not?
Again, over time, but I would like one first come, first served. Who would like to respond?
I would like to respond, but maybe just connecting with the
Please,
last
Marconi.
question. Someone just asked, what would be the idea? In Recife, for instance, we were the first city in Brazil to implement in the public schools curriculum the sustainable and climate change discipline, which will help kids and youth to learn more about what is the issues that we're facing with sustainability and climate change, and also give them the opportunity to reflect on how they can create new ways of working with it, maybe with social entrepreneurship and creating solutions in their community to solve those issues. And in Recife, I would like also to highlight some of the concrete measures that we have been taking to mitigate the effects of climate change. We are expanding the, I don't know how to say that in English, but the cycling roads for bikers, so people can use bikes instead of using cars. We expanded the cycling roads in 480%. In 2013, it was only 24 kilometers, and now it's 140 kilometers, and we're working to expand even more. And we also have been working to expand the exclusive area for buses, so more people can use buses and have more effective transport, since we have a lot of issues with traffic in Recife. And we have also expanded these projects of implementing lighting in LED, so we can have more powerful and economical energy in the city. And we're planning to expand this to local communities as well. And also we have this program with local communities where we can, people can exchange their lightings instead of using more lightings that will use more energy. They can change with the municipality for LEDs. So then it can be more effective and more economical as well.
Thank you so much, Marconi. I also love how this is becoming also a peer-to-peer exchange with other cities. That's very good. Maybe that's also something else, Corrado, that is on our to-do list for the future to continue this conversation. But maybe can I ask if there is any specific question coming from other audience that is following us online, Corrado?
For the moment, no questions. I will keep you updated. We had one, but you already know, so that's it.
Thank you very much. Then we move to our last, but as always, not the least, round of our conversation. And it's my pleasure to give the floor to Antonia Pacelli, who will tell us a little bit about her idea, her ask, and her pitch around youth engagement in climate policy making. So Antonia, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm Antonia. I'm a PhD candidate in environmental economics, and I'm also a founder of an environmental association called Twenda, so I'm an activist. And with my peers, we talk about climate change related issues very often. And it happens that people ask me, what is your climate action? And it was also actually the call for this speech today. And what I think is that climate action cannot be mine, but climate action is necessarily ours in the sense that everybody should contribute to deal with climate change. And in my opinion, the two main pillars for reaching a sustainable path are education and social awareness. Raising awareness and education constitute the base for a bottom-up approach that could guide the demand towards sustainable products. And as economists, I can surely state that the role of the demand is huge. And actually it follows also from what we said up to now in the previous sections, because it drives the supply and it makes much easier the decision-making process for implementing policy in this direction, due to much more consensus that they would have, and they guide also the lobby interests on the way that we consider the right way. And together with this, the institutions have the responsibility to inform citizens that a sustainable life exists and they should make it affordable for the most. And what I think is that bottom-up or top-down approaches alone cannot really make the change, but we need a combination of those. So the regulation and policies need to go together with social sensitivity in some way. And the more the citizens are informed and aware about these issues, the faster would be the revolution in our harmful habits for the environment. This view for being implemented needs incentives, as we also said up to now, and people that think outside of the box in which we are since decades. And there are a lot of highly educated and informed young people that can provide different perspectives and shorter ways towards a sustainable lifestyle. Why including us in this process is because our generation lives climate change very closely since we are born, and its consequences are going to have a direct impact in our lives. So this is why I think that the sensitivity of our generation can be the tool that successfully guides the decision-making process. And for concluding, I really believe that the institutions at any level, so local, national, or international level, should open their gates to young people and leave them a bit of space for discussing the points of climate issues and possible resolutions. It was also a question in the introduction, so how to include them, how to include us in this discussion could be easy with through like thematic tables or open door discussions. I think that it's going to be worth it in some sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Antonia. And I believe that along the same line, also our next contributor has some clear ideas on how we could engage better and in a more streamlined and meaningful manner youth into the climate action discussion. So it's my pleasure now to give the floor to Pedro José de Sousa Mendes. Pedro, are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, hello. First of all, it is my big pleasure to be here today and to have been listening to this very interesting intervention from everybody. My name is Pedro, and it is my honor to be presenting this idea today for empowering youth for climate action. I'm also a European Climate Pact Ambassador since December 2020, a new initiative that represents civil society dimension of the European Green Deal. Youth, I believe this is a key word for shaping how the future in general and next 3 decades in particular will be. In these times of climate breakdown, it is important not to forget that the consequences of the actions we take today won't affect us all the same way in the future. In fact, their impact will be inversely proportional with regards to age, since the decision makers of today will, in principle, live fewer years under the eventual climate catastrophe than the young generations that are not yet involved enough in this process. This is why I would like to suggest the creation of a European Commissioner for the Youth. As it stands, Mrs. Maria Gabriel is European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education, and Youth, which means that she is responsible for a portfolio containing 5 different policy areas. However, I believe the youth cannot and should not be considered as just another policy area. Instead, European policymaking, especially following the series of decisions that for the past decades led us to the current dire situation, should be multi-generational at every level. After 2019, the European Commissioner for Research, Science and Innovation merged with the one for Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. From the current position, I call for a reversion of this trend, a new split that would create the sole position of the Commissioner for the Youth. Not a phrase idea to be justifiable in the eyes of the current EU decision makers, it is imperative that we show that our voice will not only matters, but that it can bring a lot to the table. Worldwide movements such as Fridays for Future have and continue to show us the power of the youth has when we come together and demand our rights of having an inhabitable planet to be fulfilled. Therefore, our engagement as European Climate Pact ambassadors in platforms like the European Youth Forum, in coalitions such as Generation Climate Europe, adding to our work in our local communities, needs to be reflected at the highest level of policymaking, the European Commission. It is time that the youth starts being seen as yet another policy area to deliberate about, but instead as another generation that has at least as much interest and legitimacy to be involved in shaping the world of tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution and for your pitch, Pedro. Maybe I will look at Maria to start with, because we heard about the importance of having a more structured engagement for youth for Europe. So Maria, I understand that the European Economic and Social Committee is looking into this a little bit. Can you share a little bit your thoughts around the 2 asks that our colleagues have been, and our youth representative have been sharing today?
Yes, the ESC is looking into it a lot, actually. Ever since a very long time. I mean, even some countries, they have assigned members of the ESC coming from their youth organizations, which are not many of them, but still there are small steps towards the correct direction. So for a long time, informally, we've always reached to the youth organizations. For example, Generation Climate Europe is currently a member of the coordination group of the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform that we have as a project, which I invite you to see. It is related to the previous interventions, but you will definitely find inspiring examples if you need there. For example, the European Youth Forum is a member of our liaison group, which is a joint group of different civil society organizations that jointly with the ESC, they're opening debates and they're organizing several events to include civil society in all its forms. So at some point, we realized that the informal engagement and reaching out to the youth was not enough. So we thought about making it more structural. And this is when we decided officially with an opinion that we elaborated on how to structure youth engagement on climate and sustainability, could put forward more concrete examples for collaboration. And as the outcome of this opinion, for the first time, for example, on the COP ESC delegation, we will have a representative from the youth movement participating as an observer, along with the official ESC delegation. For example, we continuously, structurally reach out to the youth organizations to reach for input when we're preparing our different opinions on different sets of legislation. Another example is that we've started organizing roundtables around sustainability, and the idea is to hold 4 roundtables throughout the year, to which in 2 of them, Vice President Timmermans will also be present. He was already there in July. So we are opening little by little all the possible doors and windows to bring in the youth. And this is important to know. I mean, we are not starting from scratch. There are opportunities out there. I think that the approach that Antonia, for example, explained, that we need to have bottom up and up bottom collaborating together, it's the way to go forward. And I would add to that youth and youth participation should be transversal. It's something that does not, there are not youth specific issues. Youth should be all over the place, all over the policies, not only in sustainability, not in transport, in housing, in working conditions, whatever subject that we discuss, youth should be there. And this is why I think we need more time to debate with Pedro about his approach on having a specific youth commissioner. It will give youth a possibility and much more visibility, for sure, which is important, because the first thing to do is to make people see that the youth is there and they're ready to act. On the other hand, I'm afraid it will lead us to working in silos, only focusing on youth and only asking the youth participation on youth-related issues. So I have mixed feelings, I don't know, but we need more time to discuss, because there are advantages and disadvantages in both options. Before I finish, the only thing I would like to tell you is get active, and not only active in your own organizations, but in the same approach that I was mentioning, we need to fill in the gaps. Job postings on policy making level, educate your parents, because education is important for young people, but the kids need to educate the parents in sustainability. For sure, it will be much easier than any political campaign coming from the outside. And always taking into account, echoing what my colleague Andrea said, when we talk about sustainability, we have to think about economy, and we have to think about social aspects as well. Otherwise, only climate, people will not have the buy-in if they don't see how they are personally affected. So we need to make it personal for the people in order to advance.
Thank you very much, Maria, also for sharing this news about your delegate now going to COP. I think it's also boding very well for our conversation, of course, which we plan to continue. But Lotte, maybe I'll come to you. You opened up telling us that your city is undergoing this revision of the plan, and it's looking into how to structurally engage more closely youth into the overall process. So maybe you want to share a little bit what your thinking is and where the challenges still are. Perhaps we have some solutions to offer to you collectively. And of course, any remark and any comment on the pitches that you heard would be very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you. So, yeah, the situation in Turku is now that the goal is to be carbon neutral by 29, so in less than 10 years. And the city has done already like taking the low-hanging fruits on the climate action, like city owns part of the energy company, they gonna get rid of the fossil, burning fossils within 1 year, and it's already mostly renewable and these sorts of things. The public transport is turning into electrical. In the food sector, there's still lot to do, and in consumption and such things, and we also need to get the businesses more strongly involved in the climate action. So what I see now, it's a lot about communications. Antonia said that climate action is ours. And the city of Turku has taken this approach that we communicate that city of Turku has cut 50% of the area's emissions, and in the future cuts, we need the help of the citizens and the businesses. So in that sense, we are in a bit of, I would say we're quite advanced in this climate work compared to other cities in Europe, maybe. And the difficulty is to get everyone excited about climate action and to create this feeling that Turku is a climate city, that we are doing this together. And when it comes to, like I said, like the city can offer certain things that makes the climate friendly living easier, such as electric buses. But we need to have people to use these buses and leave the car home, or we have improved the bicycle roads, and we still need to motivate people to use these services. And for that, we have now a big climate campaign about it. But yeah, I would say in the future, the ways to cut emissions are getting harder and harder, since we need to involve everyone.
Thank you. And definitely, I guess the youth can be a great ally in that direction. So hopefully that will be part also of the next steps that we can discuss. But Lena, you heard about this excitement about tackling climate challenges. Is the European Climate Pact seeing this excitement growing? And what are your thoughts from the different proposals that are coming out of your colleagues? I understand that also Pedro is a Climate Pact ambassador, so you're here in a different position, both responding and also probably joining some of these comments.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Antonia and Pedro, for your ideas. This is what I share and what I fight for as well. So it's very nice to hear that. And yes, I want to talk about the Climate Pact, but also other projects that I'm working on, since Pedro is already in the pact, so he knows everything. He presented it better than myself. But yeah, so just to explain for other people that are still not ambassador, I would really encourage you to apply to this scheme, because I think what Antonia was saying is very interesting, that we have this top-down and bottom-up approaches, and you feel that sometimes some people are advocating for one or for the other. And I feel that the ambassador program, it's something in the middle, because it's trying to scale up and scale out bottom-up initiatives, so to create a network among citizens, so that we can know what's happening around climate action already in the EU, and we can support each other at the grassroots levels. But it also allows us to feed into EU programs and to have those discussions with policymakers and institutional actors, which I think is very important. So to give you a very concrete example, as a Climate Pact ambassador, and I was invited to have a conversation with different MEPs, and we had this talk with them, and it was really nice to see how involved they are on those topics, and they were really calling for youth people to just reach out to them, share any proposals, concrete proposals that we have, all the work we're doing in our youth organization. So I think sometimes there is the tendency to think that there is kind of this isolated policymakers, but no, actually they're craving for our ambitious idea. So let's just go out there and reach out to the relevant people. I think that's something powerful that we can do to get involved in those processes. Then regarding broader projects that are happening at the European Commission, so next year is going to be the European Year for Youth. So a lot of things are going to happen regarding youth involvement. So please keep an eye open on the different programs that are going to be implemented there. I also wanted to go back to the point on Pedro on the proposal for a youth commissioner. And when I read his speech, I thought that was a very good idea. So I tried to look up a little bit. And actually, there is a youth coordinator, Biljana Sirakova. So she's not a commissioner, but I think her role is what you were mentioning, that she's only focused on the youth agenda, and she's trying to push for more youth involvement. So I think it's a first step towards maybe having one day a commissioner. I agree that we have to get involved in all issues, and it's not only about climate change. For example, I've also recently learned that the DG for international cooperation, they put in place a youth advisory board. So once again, involving youth, but this time in development topics. So we have our words to say in every topic. But I think, as Pedro was mentioning, it's good that we have someone who is representing our interest at the highest level, so we don't get forgotten from any of those areas. So yeah, just I'm very glad to see all this energy, and I really think that the Climate Pact can support that. It's a very open project, so please join us there. We're open for inputs, and I will be very happy to working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena, and it's great to hear that there is so much already happening. Of course, that doesn't mean that there is not much more that can be done, and I think today's discussion was really a proof that we can definitely do much more. Antonia, Pedro, would you like to respond from your side after the reaction from our panelists? Maybe Antonia first.
Yes, thank you very much for these speeches. They were very interesting, and also they gave us a lot of new information, at least for me. I really agree with Maria, and I find very important that what she said about a structured and transversal interaction between young people and policymakers, and because it might create new opportunities. I come from the south of Italy, and what I think that is the main problem is the lack of opportunities, particularly for young people. And in the tendency we go out abroad or in the north, but most abroad. So this is very important, and I hope that also locally there are going to be some organization like this. I think it's very important, not only internationally but also locally.
Thank you, Antonia. Pedro, from your side, anything that you would like to share?
Yes, thank you first of all for your feedback, and in particular for clarifying some points and better explaining the European Climate Pact. Commenting on what Maria added about the advantages and disadvantages of creating a youth commissioner, I agree that there is a potential of creating silos. The problem is those silos already exist, and I believe creating a youth commissioner is not the ideal solution, because youth should be involved, as we have all said throughout this whole session, involved at every level of decision making. However, at the current level we see, and at the lobbies that we see in the EU, and the often lack of accountability to the youth, this is why I believe the question of a youth commissioner would better be able to defend the interests of the youth at this level. Of course, ideally, not just at this level, but that would be the idea behind this proposal. But thank you very much for clarifying, Maria, particularly your opinion on this, and I agree.
Thank you, Pedro. I don't know, Maria, if you want to react from your side. And I also understand that maybe Lotte has an additional opportunity that she would like to bring to our attention. So perhaps I give you both the floor very, very shortly.
Yes, breaking the silos, Pedro, breaking the silos, it's hard, but it's the structural way of tackling things. So let's use the tools that they are offered. We have now opened the platform for the future of Europe. I invite you to go in, to get involved, off the record, spam them, spam with all the ideas that you have, get engaged and spread the word. I mean, they are opening doors and opportunities for the people to have their voices heard and to precisely break the silos. So let's take the opportunities there. Thank you.
Thank you. Lotte?
Yes, I would like to ask, does any other country has this youth councils operating in the municipalities? This is something that is stated by law in Finland that every municipality has to offer for the young people this way of influencing decision making. So in Turku as well, we have a youth council, and recently they left this climate commitment to the city council, and that led to certain kind of cooperation. We did a climate campaign together and so on. But this is, at least in Finland, one way for the structured cooperation. But of course, it's only for quite small group of students that can be selected for that council.
I see that David is sharing that some municipalities in Germany do have that. Thank you very much, David. I don't know, Lena, if you have maybe any better picture of what is the situation across Europe, or maybe if this is something that we can ask the Climate Pact ambassadors to look into as an opportunity.
Yeah, I think this is definitely something that we want to see phased out, because this is a very good opportunity, and I think the municipal level is a very relevant one. This gives me the opportunity to talk about something that we're implementing now in the Pact, which is called the Youth Challenge, which is an incubation program for youth ideas around climate actions. And one of the applications we have is around this project of Youth Council. I cannot now tell you exactly where it is, but I think it would be to create this project in a specific city and then to be able to replicate that. So we're definitely working on this.
Thank you. And I see Regina also mentioned that they have it in their city. So clearly we picked the right speakers for today. And we hope that we can continue this conversation, of course. We are already a little bit over time and getting very close to our wrap up. Corrado, maybe I'll ask you again if there was any comment coming from our live stream.
Yeah. There was a comment, and thanks, Giorgia, for giving me the opportunity also to say my opinion. I would like to tackle this comment and somehow say also thank also all the participants. This meeting, in my opinion, was an opportunity to bring together the voices of young people that are citizens, consumers, activists. They are, citizens today and tomorrow, of course. And in my opinion, it is essential that these voices are brought in front of policymakers and decision makers. And often, those who have the power to change things need fresh and innovative ideas. And I think that these ideas can, of course, come from the young. And this is the idea also behind our Food Wave project, to give voice and visibility to young people, give them the space to express their opinions on the issues of climate change and food. And in addition, I also would like, as I was telling you before, to answer to a comment from the audience. And for that, thanks a lot to ICLEI for posing this question, that it is crucial that sustainable solutions are accessible to the public. So they should be affordable. Not everybody could spend a premium price for sustainable food or sustainable products. And in my opinion, and also of course in ICLEI opinion, this always has to be considered. And in this regard, the famous green premium that supports the transition to a greener economy must be sustained not only by consumers, but also by decision makers who can shift somehow market dynamics. And probably this is the only way that we could make progresses in our fight against the climate crisis. And in this regard, this demonstrates that policymakers are increasingly called to listen to young people, to citizens, to consumers, and consider them in their choices. And I hope that this event, in a little extent, has been a small opportunity, a first step towards these goals. And finally, I would like to invite all the young speakers that participated to this event to become Food Wave ambassador. They can simply apply into the website of Food Wave project. And I really would like to thank everybody that participated to this event and also commented in our pages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corrado. I would like to echo your thanks to the team at ICLEI Europe and the team at Food Wave and the team at the City of Milan for the great work done in organizing this session. Of course, I want to thank very much our youth representatives for sharing the pitches. You heard some of them, the one that were, let's say, that we decided to showcase today, but there were many more very interesting thoughts that, of course, are out there, and then many ideas that can contribute to continue strengthening the involvement, the engagement of youth within climate action. And of course, many thanks to the many speakers that join us today and share their thoughts and their experiences and what they are doing on the ground. To conclude, again, I want to reiterate that for us, this is very much a process, and that we would like to see this as a first stepping stone to a longer and more structural engagement of youth into climate policy. And let's say, three main ideas and messages that we would like to share also from our side following the discussion that we had. I think, first of all, I think we have heard loud and clear, and we acknowledge and we really recognize the importance of establishing a more structured engagement of youth in policy making at city, but also at national level. And we understand that this should be done via a more regular exchange, but also multi-generational approaches that are bringing together this different generation to discuss how to implement action. I want also to really acknowledge the importance of the work the European Economic and Social Committee is doing with these roundtables, but also you heard the many cities that are bringing together these different councils, these different ways to really embed the priorities of youth into their own climate action. So hopefully we will see that growing and increasing in the future. I also want to commend, of course, the efforts that are being taken out there that we didn't refer to today. Other initiatives, I mentioned the Milan Youth Charter, but I know there is also an African Youth Regional City Manifesto that is being developed. So lots of movement happening right now in specifically this field. As ICLEI, we would like to commit to work more closely with the YUNGO, the constituency that represents the young generation within the COP26 negotiation, as well as one of the different focal points, of course, of this discussion that are recognized. And we want to make sure that this dialogue continues also within the COP26 and the next negotiations, and to look into how we can formulate a better and stronger common agenda to include youth into local policy making, and to make sure that we can really shape priorities according to what the leaders of tomorrow also see in their own future. And then finally, again, this idea of strengthening as much as possible and institutionalizing the views of the young generation within these processes, looking into implementations of the NDC, National Resilience and Recovery Plan, seeing how these priorities that you brought forward today and the many others that have not been discussed can really help us shaping the action that we need to take today to make sure that we have a future that looks like you want to see and we want to see tomorrow. So with this, again, I want to thank you very much all for your time, also for staying a little bit longer than we were foreseen, but definitely was a very good discussion, and we really look forward to continuing this, let's say, new episode of this conversation in the future. So thank you, and I wish you all a wonderful continuation of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody.
Bye.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Bye.
Nice to meet everyone. Bye.
Bye.